He is. Yeah. Careful, I chocolate. Okay. Hey guys, Victoria Smith here with Take the Lead Canine Training, and I'm bringing you episode number 9 of Foster Dog Friday. Thanks for tuning in. The goal with this program is to help people with their dogs. I want to help pet owners learn how to live better lives with their dogs and change things maybe they're struggling with so that they can keep their dog in their home. I want to help rescues educate potential adopters so that they can have better service and have less dogs coming back to the rescue. And I want to help fosters have the opportunity to help create an even better dog so that a forever home has a dog who's been trained and been exposed to things, and set fosters up to live a more smooth life as they bring these dogs into their home. This episode is about children and dogs. I really want to talk about preventing dog bites and the best way we can teach our kids to interact with dogs. Lately, I've been seeing a lot of stories that are pretty upsetting of children being bitten and severely hurt by dogs, and a lot of these dogs actually in the family. So I want to take some time to really shine a light on this, because I think children and dogs are a beautiful thing together. I love families with dogs. If I didn't have dogs growing up, I certainly wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. So I think having dogs in the lives of children are important. I feel like there may just be a lack of education or lack of understanding on what's going on where dog bites are happening. I really feel a lot of dog bites are preventable, and so a lot of times we're just missing signs and setting up dogs and kids to fail. So that's kind of what I want to address today. Believe it or not, most dog bites actually happen in front of adults. Most people are with their children or with family members when they see a child get bitten. So again, my question is, what can we do as canine professionals, as rescue people, as vets, as dog lovers to help this tragic stuff stop happening? And I really feel that we just need to start rethinking the way that we encourage or allow our children to interact with dogs and bring to light some things that maybe people aren't realizing are inappropriate interactions. Most of the time you've seen a lot of pictures where you've got, kids laying on dogs or kids hugging dogs, kids pulling on ears, putting hands on face, family photos where everybody's leaning up against the dog. You see a lot of very cute photos like that. You see some really cute videos of, a little girl with a bowl of food and all her dogs sitting around her and she's about to tell them to eat. And it can be exciting and cute and looking very empowering for children, but it can also be a kind of dangerous situation. So you really have to take the time to look and see, what is my dog telling me about the situation? A lot of these photos, when you look, you'll see a lot of stress signals from dogs. So we need to start looking for signs of stress and layers of stress. A lot of times dogs don't really like to be hugged or have people in their face. So you'll see when someone's coming in for a hug or putting their face very close to a dog lean away, or a dog's eyes get really big, or their mouth get really tight, or they do kind of a combination of all those things. Their body language stiffens up. All of those are signals that say, I'm uncomfortable with something. The bite is like the last straw. So there's a lot of signals that lead up to these bites. A lot of times dogs want to avoid conflict, and so they try to get away, they try to move, they try and reposition themselves. They'll look to the adult and say, help me with my eyes, but people aren't picking up on those things because the dog's not biting. We don't want to wait until we have the bite to do something. We want to start doing something sooner. And different dogs are bred for different levels of tolerance. You can look at like your labs and golden retrievers and people are like, I can pull his ears and tail and he's fine. But should you really be doing that? Yes, maybe your dog's okay with that, but is that really an appropriate way to tell children to interact with dogs? We want to teach people how to respect dogs and teach children how to respect the nature of dogs. And in particular, even if your personal dog is okay with the rough housing and the ear pulling, the tail pulling, and the sleeping on the dog, and the baby can lay on the dog and there's no problems, if we set that standard that that's okay, there are plenty of dogs that that's not okay with, and it can be confusing, particularly for children. And it can be a false sense of security for someone who's never had a bad experience, because there are plenty of situations where putting pressure on a dog like that could result in a bite. There's stuff called layers of stress too that we have to take into consideration. The same way, like you wake up early in the morning and you stub your toe, the hot water heater was empty, you spilled your coffee, and now there's traffic on the way to work. All of these things are layers of stress, and you get more and more irritated and frustrated along the way. And eventually you get to work and you like blow up at, the little girl that comes up to take your coffee order. So those are considered layers of stress to the blow up. And so things like that can happen with dogs too. Particularly, let's just continue to talk about children. We've got a child's birthday party at the house, and maybe your dog is okay with your child, but then you've got 10 little boys running around making a bunch of noise, and you've got balloons that are huge and floating around, and you've got loud music, and you've got food, and you've got a clown there, and there's all this energy. Your dog is getting more and more stressed by all of these things. And then one of your kids' friends has come over, maybe met your dog before, or one of your kids' friends has seen photos of your dog being sweet, and you've left your dog out because you're like, my dog likes kids. And then the kids all go in for a hug with the dog, and one of them gets bit, and the dog has never acted like this before. Those layers of stress added up, and the dog was overwhelmed and exploded. In the end, I want to help people change the way they think about interacting with dogs and the way they encourage children to interact with dogs. A great saying is, you wouldn't leave a child unsupervised around a pool. You don't like to let children run around pools. You wouldn't leave a child in a room with a gun just sitting on the table. And one I was thinking about the other day in particular, it's kind of common sense, I believe, that you don't walk behind a horse. Like if you're on a trip to a barn with kids, you tell them right away, don't walk behind a horse. Why? You walk behind a horse, you get kicked, they can't see. Granted, there's not a horse in every home, but the amount of horse injuries, you don't hear so much about children getting hit by horses, but you hear a lot about children getting bit by dogs. And I feel like maybe I could be wrong, that situation of don't get behind that large animal is pretty well known. So I want dog interactions to be really well known too. Lately, there have been a few really sad stories of kids getting injured by dogs, and I won't go into the details of what happened, but a lot of these are very young children, toddlers, or kids less than their teens. We're talking 10, 11, 12, but particularly like toddlers and babies for sure, getting bitten, and a lot of child bites happen to the face. I want to talk a little bit about why children tend to get bitten so badly by dogs, why a lot of the bites tend to be to the face, and what it is about children that can make a dog unsettled or take a dog who has been okay with children and lead to a bite. And in the end, I want you to really think about what a dog is. A dog is an apex predator. So again, we have to respect the dog. It's an animal with teeth that were made to tear through flesh. Not necessarily human flesh, but they are designed to be able to chew up and cut prey. So we have to keep that in mind. Now, children are loud, and they run, and they giggle, and they scream, and they're not super predictable all the time. That's the joy of children. But for dogs who are nervous or timid, insecure or unsure, that unpredictability creates a layer of stress in the dog. Now, I want you to think even more about the way that children interact with stuff, especially younger kids. They do a lot of grabbing. They grab things. They may not grab things gently. And so when we're talking about touching dogs, they're being a little grabby, they're being maybe a little rough. Again, a layer of stress that the dog may not appreciate. Children are also small. They're much smaller than adults, and so it can make a dog a little unsettled because children are small and they smell a little different. And when you're talking about little bitty kids, like toddlers and babies, they're don't have full coordination of their body. So babies do a lot of and toddlers do a lot of wide-eyed looking, and so trying to introduce a baby to a dog is a terrible idea. But the reason it is because again, babies, they don't do a ton of blinking. They're trying to just observe what's around them, and that hard stare to a dog can seem very threatening. Again, and then a baby is small, and it makes lots of small baby noises. Kids, babies scream, they coo, they cry. All of these things can trigger a response in your dog. I want you to take a minute and think about your dog's squeaky toy and how excited and interested and aroused and adrenalized your dog gets, how chew harder, and they like to make it squeak, 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 squeak. They really go after that squeaky toy. The squeak is designed to sound like and trigger their drive to sound like dying prey. That's why dogs enjoy it so much. It triggers a primal thing in them. That's why they love to squeak it so much. So dogs are hardwired that when they hear stuff like that to get more excited and more aroused. And so a lot of times with these bites, I'm not there for them, but maybe it was even just a quick air snap or just a bump of the mouth and not actual damage initially, but a child gets scared or overwhelmed and then they begin to cry. And then that dying prey, crying noise behavior happens, and then in a dog who is already in defense mode or already in some form of adrenaline because they've been stressed by whatever, the child or the environment that they're in, they hear that noise and it kind of kicks their drive in. The same thing can happen, and we're talking about in a defensive way and then it turns ugly. If we're talking about kids running around with dogs, a friendly dog, the kids are running and playing and everything's okay and the dog's just pawing and they're having fun, but then maybe they start to get the kid giggles and they start giggling and getting louder. When dogs start making a lot of noise playing with each other, they feed into each other and they get excited, and dogs will start to use their mouth more and look at rougher. And again, maybe it won't be a severe bite, but it's rough play and it ends up with the kid falling down and crying, or the kid trying to run away and the dog getting more and more adrenalized and chasing. And then children too, little ones especially, are really grabby. They're grabby because they're exploring the world with their mouth and their hands, and so you see a lot of videos that just shake me, that really concern me, of little toddlers, little ones that are learning to crawl too, coming up to a dog, and they're coming up and they're putting their hands on the dog because they're trying to feel, but they're putting a lot of physical pressure, and they're putting a lot of spatial pressure on a dog. And again, they're not blinking a ton, they're moving in with all their body weight, and they're grabbing tail, and they're pushing up the side of the dog that's laying down. Like, all of those things are super rude behaviors that a dog would do to another dog. It's really rude as a dog to step on or smush another dog that's laying there, and you usually get corrected. And so baby gets snapped at for doing that. Baby probably got warned multiple times with licking lips and a wide eye and avoiding looks and looking at owner, help me, but we're like, the video's so cute, the picture's so cute, they're hugging, she's playing with the dog, and then we don't see those signs, and then there's a quick snap, or maybe some brief contact with the teeth, and baby cries immediately and drive kicks in. I'm not trying to scare people, but I'm kind of trying to help people really see what's happening, because it is the damage that can happen to a child from a dog is horrific. No matter the size of the child, the size of the dog, a bite to a child is awful. And the bigger the dog, of course, the more injury that can be caused. And so we really need to think, like, how are kids interacting with their dogs? We have to respect dogs as the animals that they are. They're not stuffed animals. You know, I wish like, you know, I love stuffed animals as a kid, but now that I look back, it's like we're encouraging kids to hug and squeeze stuffed animals. You know, we need to learn to respect dogs and not spend a lot of time hugging them and coming into their personal space, but find more appropriate ways to interact with them, particularly with dogs you don't know. But it's horrific what can happen to children, and we really need to, as you know, I feel like it's happening more frequently. It happens a lot, and I'm desperate to find a way to help people understand why this is happening, to look for the warning signs, and to not get complacent. Because yes, you probably do. If you do have a friendly dog, they may be tolerating all the things I'm talking about, the pushing on the body and the pulling the ears and the tail, and they may just give the kids kisses the whole time while they pull their lips, and that's awesome that you have a dog that can tolerate that. But I promise you there are other dogs that can't, and it's a precedence that kind of gives people a false sense of security, and ultimately may also, if you're not careful, give your child a sense that this is how I interact with other dogs. So and those dogs may not be tolerant. So we just want to look for more appropriate ways for kids to interact with dogs. Another big part of this is helping rescues, because people are doing a lot of adopting now, which is great. Helping rescues place dogs, the right kinds of dogs, with families. And so the questions we have to ask to do that are like, well, you know, there's general temperament tests. We look for resource guarding. We look for, you know, growling aggression, stuff like that, and really obvious things that we're like, okay, this is a real issue. But there's some stuff that maybe isn't clicking as much, that we aren't maybe looking for, and it still lends itself to being a challenge to live with homes, particularly with small children. So I want to talk about things like, you know, is this dog timid or is it outgoing? A lot of times a calm or reserved dog seems like, oh, it could be a nice fit because it's not super hyper and jumping on everyone. But if it's timid and it shows kind of insecure body language, it may not do that well without training and confidence boosting prior going into a family with small children. Again, as I said before, kids are loud, they're crazy, they're hyper, they're all over the place. It's a lot for a dog to take on. Then when we talk about outgoing dogs, we have to look at those guys too. You know, an outgoing dog is awesome. I mean, a friendly dog, everybody wants a friendly dog in their family. But we kind of want to look and see, are we having any issues with adrenaline or drive? When I talk about drive, we're talking about like high energy dogs that, you know, love to work and they love to play, which again is great for family with kids. But drivey dogs are really, you know, their drive in a dog is really fun. And drivey dogs can be a lot of fun to train and live with. They're great for hunting, they're great for sport, they're great for super active people with super active lifestyles. But unchecked, unutilized, unrealized drive can be dangerous. And because drivey dogs, you know, they're really ball oriented, they love to play, they have a lot of like gusto for certain things. Unchecked can be a little unsettling in a calm family home. So drive is fun if you're going to utilize it. If you're not utilizing it, it can be hard to live with because you don't know what I can do to help that dog fulfill that need for drive. And then you end up with a frustrated dog, a hyper-excited dog, and a dog who, again, may end up unintentionally overwhelming your kids, jumping, pulling them down the street, and just being a little too much for your family or for small children. And then when we talk about adrenaline issues, do we have a dog who just goes from 0 to 100 on the excitement level? Again, a happy dog is great for a family, but you have to be careful. If you've got a dog who just starts jumping and going crazy and like bloodshot eyes and is way overexcited, like that's hard to live in a family with small children too, without training and maybe without an experienced owner. So we really want to look like outgoing is good, friendly is good, but is this a good match for families with small children? Are these dogs that need a ton of exercise, that get really revved up really easily? Because again, as I said before, they could be playing, they could be running around, having a good time, and then the dog's really excited and loves chasing the kids and loves playing with the kids, but then maybe the kids cry or fall down, and then the dog's already driving and excited, and they just kind of kick into gear, to dog gear, into like more work, more arousal. The more arousal you have in a dog, the more adrenaline you have in the dog, the less impulse control you have in a dog, and then they get really they can be very reactive to things, and stuff you didn't think could happen maybe can't. So I hope that makes sense. And then we want to see, that's the great thing about foster homes, is they give us an opportunity to see what these dogs are good with. Are they good with other dogs? Are they good with kids? Are they good with cats? So we really want to see, has this dog had any exposure to children before we start talking about placing it with a family with kids? And what was that exposure like? Did this dog seem friendly and cordial to the kids, or did they seem reserved and standoffish? Those are really big things, because then again, a lot of families are very busy, and I don't think that they want a dog who they're, not that they don't want to train their dog, but that they have to do a lot of confidence building with, or they may, you may want to do that, but it's a lot of work, and to do it in a way that helps create a safe, well-rounded, confident dog can be taxing. It takes a lot of energy, and if you run a busy life and your kids are in all these sports and you work, and it's like those goals of creating that confident, outgoing dog are harder to reach because you can't dedicate quite as much time to that particular thing. So again, we're just trying to match families with the right kind of dog. I want to help rescues set realistic expectations for the dogs that they have, that they need to place, and for the families in front of them. There's, to soften the image of certain breeds, like pitties and tougher dogs, we've got this nanny dog concept, and I have a wonderful pitty, and there are a lot of really great pitties around that are soft and great with kids and a lot of fun, but generalizing that they were all nanny dogs can be kind of misleading to people who are not super familiar with the breed. And again, I understand it's an effort to soften the image of the breed, because there are so many great pitties that are not aggressive towards people or aggressive towards dogs. But we do have a lot of pitties and just high energy dogs, not just pitties, but shepherds and huskies and just little pointers with working line dogs that are high energy, that are very drivey. And so yes, they're fun and they're playful, but they also have a lot of high energy and a lot of drive, and that can be hard to mesh sometimes with families with younger kids. So we just want to set realistic expectations for people too on what they're getting into when they get a dog, and how important training is, and how important setting boundaries is, and how important teaching your children the proper way to interact with other dogs is. And so, more experienced pet owners who have had dogs who are high energy and high drive are really great candidates for some dogs who, while others may need softer, easier dogs to begin with. And again, rescue is all about helping people keep dogs in their home when they want to place people with the right dogs. So my thing is just let's look for adrenaline and driviness, and see, is that a great fit for this family with kids, or is that a better fit for somebody who's active and hikes and does a lot of things and maybe isn't at home, having birthday parties and spending a lot of time away from the house doing kid events, and maybe for somebody who's out there going miles and getting tons of exercise. It's all about matching the dog with the right family. And then lastly, I want to help kids just interact with dogs in better ways. Again, a lot of people are like, my dog nips my kids and they jump on him and he gets too excited and they they pull my kid down the street and they chase and they grab my kid's like clothes and stuff. And a lot of that is just the kids are playing with the dog, but they're playing in kind of a rough way. They're playing a lot with their hands. I always encourage kids, if you're going to play with the dog, play with a toy, so you give the dog a target, and like especially if it's puppies, gives the dog a target to bite. Play with the toy, not my arms. Training, of course, is an excellent way for children to interact with dogs, starting to set boundaries for dogs and set boundaries for kids. We teach something called place command, where a dog goes and stays on their dog bed. Kids can call their dog over and tell their dog to place, but then the kids realize when the dog is on place, they have to stay hands off. They have to stay relaxed. Realize when the dog's on place, it's kind of like home base, hands off. We're not over there to get the dog excited. We're not over there to bother them while they're on place. That's their safe spot. That's home base. So that's hands off. That's where kids have to leave dog alone when they're in their place or in their crate. We also want to help them understand some age-appropriate interactions and responsibilities. Dog ownership is a great way for kids to have responsibility, and so thinking of things that can help your kid get involved with the dog so that they can begin to build a relationship beyond just best friend, or because again, if they're just their dog's best friend, the dog might treat them like a dog, which includes a lot of jumping and biting and mouthing. We want to give them some responsibility too, where the dog looks to the child for information and guidance, and so like feeding and taking out potting, taking on walks. If we've got a dog who's safe to do that with, can be a really great way for the kids to interact with the dog, because it teaches kids responsibility. And then we just want to set those boundaries again of how to greet dogs. Let the dog come to you. Stay quiet and stay still. Don't rush into a dog's space. Don't hug every dog you see. If a dog is not coming to you, that's okay. And always ask before trying to pet a dog. If a dog's not coming to you, they probably don't want to be pet. So just leave them alone. If a dog's sleeping, don't mess with it. If a dog's got food or a toy that they're chewing on, leave it alone. Little things that can help kids really start to learn to look for signs and look for appropriate times to interact with their pets. And then ultimately training sets boundaries for the dogs as well, because it's not all the kids making the mistakes and it's not all the adults making the mistakes. Dogs make plenty of mistakes too. They jump up, they get on the couch, they grab the kids' toys, they nab food off the dinner table. Like, these dogs are doing they're getting a little out of hand too, so we want to set boundaries through training for them as well, so that you can live a more peaceful life. Being a parent, working, and having kids can be a handful in itself, and then you're trying to train a dog on top of it. So training makes your life easier, not harder. And so setting boundaries for your dogs through training, and setting boundaries for your kids based off the guidelines of the dog, can be really helpful for getting everybody on the same page. Because again, nobody wants to be the one that's on the news with the dog bite. We really want to live peacefully with our dogs. We really want people to be responsible in their ownership. We want to help people. I really want to help people realize that there's a lot of little signs that lead up to this stuff, and if we can just change the way we interact with our dogs and adjust our view of just viewing these dogs as cuddly, love bunnies, and respecting them as dogs, interacting with them as dogs, enjoying the stew out of them, but being respectful to a dog's needs, and teaching our children and teaching those around us the best way to interact with our dog, and thinking differently about the way they interact with other dogs, can help prevent dog bites, prevent children from getting hurt, prevent people from getting hurt, keep dogs out of shelters, and keep dogs from getting euthanized, and match dogs with appropriate families. We can have a win-win for everybody. So, this one was a little long. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please let me know, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.